Good morning if you are watching it live stream right now this morning, and hello if you're watching a later recording. I remember Groucho Marx once quipped that he wouldn't want to belong to any organization that would allow someone like him to be a member. I get that. I think that many folks have a sense of unworthiness that leads them to feel that they don't have the right to be welcome, that they're not good enough. I remember once a couple of years ago when Costco employees tried to recruit me to join the executive club while I was in the checkout line. I told them I couldn't join. Why not? They said, it'll save you money. I'm not good enough, I told them. I'm just a common bloke. I'm not executive material. That's what I told them. They didn't know what to make of that. The good news is that here we can help one another let go of our sense of unworthiness in many ways so that everyone feels good enough, feels welcome enough in this community. So I want you to consider something. There's good research out there that confirms that you can matter by affirming that others matter. If you say hi to people that you encounter during the day, if you just simply say hi, you smile and say hi, it brings people out of isolation and it creates a sense of connection. It's amazing how a simple nod and a smile can considerably increase someone's sense of connection to the people around them. So now I would say is a good time for us all to be practicing our smiles behind our masks so that when that day comes, when we take them off, we'll be smiling. Thank you.
Our opening hymn today is Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire. It's number 34 in the Gray Hymnal.
Our spirits, Lord. Citro, Katsu, Lela, Brale, Parole, Citro, Katsu, Lela, Brale, Parole.
A quote from W.H. Murray. The moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help that would never otherwise have occurred. Taking the risk of committing to something opens up all sorts of possibilities. It is the commitment that becomes your touchstone to check in with yourself. Is the journey I am on doing what is good, what is positive, what will help me? If the answer is yes, then you know you are doing what is right for you. Let us be aware of our commitments we make in our lives as we say our affirmation. Love is our doctrine. Compassion is our way. Here we seek to create a joyful home for free religious exploration, build a community of caring fellowship, nurture the hopes, and serve the needs of our world. Each week, we light 3 chalices. The first is for members of this congregation, the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Salem. We light our second chalice for our Unitarian partner church in Ciumanfalva, Transylvania, Romania. And we light our third for our children and youth in religious education and in the world at large. The flame of a candle can warm the weary soul after a deep sorrow in life. The flame of a candle can burn wood into charcoal to create art, burn secrets on paper written late at night. The flame of a candle can bring light, lighting the path on the search for truth and meaning, lighting our hopes and dreams, lighting our hearts towards love. May we care for our inner flame of light. Please join me in singing The Flame into Life.
Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy.
Good morning and welcome to the Time for All Ages portion of the service. The story I'm going to tell you today is about having compassion for an enemy. The story is a Jakata tale, or a traditional Buddhist folk tale, called The Fabulous Sharaba Deer, retold by Monty McKeever. Virtuous beings show compassion even to those who seek to harm them. When evildoers are in distress, the truly compassionate never abandon them. This was the case when the Bodhisattva was born in the forest as the fabulous Sharaba deer. During a large hunt, a local king who was distracted by his passion for sport became separated from his retinue of elephants, chariots, and footmen. Because the horse he was riding was swift, he crossed a great distance without realizing it and became lost in the remote woods inhabited by the Sharaba deer. The king spotted the impressive deer and immediately strung his bow and started to pursue it. The chase continued until they reached a gaping chasm. The deer leapt across with ease, but the king's horse abruptly halted, and the jolt threw the king from the horse. When the deer turned around, he saw the horse at the chasm's edge and quickly realized what had happened. His heart overflowed with compassion for the man who was surely on the rocks below, badly injured or even dead. Completely forgiving the man's attempt to kill him, the deer climbed down and offered aid. The deer's kind action moved the injured king deeply, and he apologized with tears in his eyes, saying that he had mistaken the deer for a low-minded beast, when in fact it was he himself who was the brute. The deer carried the king to his horse, and the king, overcome by gratitude and remorse, told the deer that he was forever in his service and beseeched the great being to come and live in the capital. The Sharaba deer declined the offer, but said that he did have one request, that the king and his people of his kingdom stop hunting. He stated that the forest animals are worthy of his compassion and protection, and not his arrows. The king agreed, and from that day on, hunting was outlawed in the kingdom, and the forest animals lived in safety. Thanks be, and may all beings benefit. Please do consider joining us for the Children and Family Service being held live on Sunday mornings just before the live general service at 9:45 a.m. via Zoom, or for the youth group meeting time on Thursdays at 5 p.m.
Take a moment now to ground yourself, being aware of your breath, so that we can reflect together on the life we share. 1 year ago was the last time we had gathered for a Sunday service. We were about to enter a dark tunnel, one that none of us had entered before. A pandemic was coming. We knew so little and feared so much. And what a harrowing ordeal it has been. More than 500,000 lives lost. So many lives painfully disrupted. So many hurting and displaced. Young and old have suffered in many ways. And all of us have mostly been isolated from one another. What a toll this has taken on our mental and our spiritual health. And this has come at a time when hatred and misunderstanding are at dangerous levels in our nation. And in the midst of such a time, what can we do? We can offer one another our compassion, our understanding. And it begins with the self. If you cannot have compassion for yourself, then you cannot have it for others. So have compassion for yourself. For yourself. And then you will be awake to see where compassion is calling you, showing you how you can be compassionate with others. And I invite you to take that journey of compassion, beginning with yourself. Compassion is our way. And gratitude. Life is hard sometimes. It's confusing. Wish I had a roadmap. Wish I had a roadmap. Then I realize I do. There is ancient wisdom from many sources. There's wisdom from our Unitarian Universalist tradition. There's modern wisdom from the sciences, the arts, great music. There are so many great souls who have come before us, sharing wisdom, providing an example, offering guidance. Even as we must find our own way in our sometimes strange new world, the brave lives and generous examples, the hard-won wisdom of our forebears blesses us now. And now today there is our own community of seeking, yearning souls. How much we offer to one another in so many ways. For all those many countless ones, past and present, who have brought light to bear in our world, we are grateful. Amen.
Compassionate Connections is happening this Sunday, a time to get together with the Lifelines Lay Ministry and Rick via Zoom to go over and get support for sorrows that you may have had in your life. Also, be sure and share your joys and concerns via the website so that we may stay connected as a community. Thank you.
Our pastoral hymn today is Winds Be Still. It's number 83 in the gray hymnal.
Winds be still, storm clouds pass and silence come. Peace grace this time with
What is anger? And what is the use of anger? Recently, I was learning about anger and what in our minds causes anger. Arousal levels were talked about and perceived threats. How traumatic events occur and then the perception that event is occurring again, the reaction can be to lash out, to protect yourself. Interestingly, anger rarely accomplishes anything except the reinforcement to react the same way when the arousal level is met. For some people, the arousal is met very quickly. It makes me think of The Four Friends by A.A. Milne of Winnie the Pooh fame. There are life lessons in this poem, like the courage it takes to try something new. That is what James the snail did. Two other characters from the poem, Ernest, a very well-intentioned elephant, and Leonard, a brave lion, take a different path. Here's the poem, and you can decide for yourself. The Four Friends by A.A. Milne. Ernest was an elephant, a great big fellow. Leonard was a lion with a 6-foot tail. George was his goat, and his beard was yellow. And James was a very small snail. Leonard had a stall and a great big strong one. Ernest had a manger and its walls were thick. George found a pen, but I think it was the wrong one. And James sat down on a brick. Ernest started trumpeting and cracked his manger. Leonard started roaring and shivered his stall. James gave a huffle of the sail in danger, and nobody heard him at all. Ernest started trumpeting and raised such a rumpus. Leonard started roaring and trying to kick. James went on a journey with the goat's new compass, and he reached the end of his brick. Ernest was an elephant and very well intentioned. Leonard was a lion with a brave new tail. George was a goat, as I think I have mentioned. But James was only a snail. So what do you think about Ernest and Leonard? To me, they don't change. They both have temper tantrums and wind up basically where they started off, even if well-intentioned and with a new tail. I don't know if that's the point in life.
It was the end of a long day at a conference I was attending in another city many years ago. I actually was not in a great mood after spending a day sitting through long and they were, I thought, boring meetings, but relief was in sight. I held in my hand a good, strong cup of joe, which I looked forward to sipping as I relaxed in the hotel room and read the New York Times. I'm a news junkie and a caffeine junkie. I stopped to get this New York Times from a machine on the corner on the street. It was back in the days when your hands actually touched newsprint. I set my drink on top of the machine. I dropped in all my quarters. Takes a lot of quarters to buy a Sunday New York Times. Put in all my quarters and pulled to get my paper. It didn't open. The machine didn't open. You know, sometimes they get a little, so I pulled a little harder. My drink spilled. And then ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. I could hear all my quarters going into the machine, giving me nothing in return. I couldn't get my paper. Robbed by a dumb machine. No newspaper, no more change, no coffee. But I'm not the type to cry over spilled coffee. Not me. I curse. I curse. I said some words you have never heard pass through my lips. I let it rip. It didn't matter because I was on the street alone that evening. I thought I was alone on the street that evening. Then out of the corner of my eye, I noticed a couple across the street staring at me, shouting all these expletive deleteds, staring at me in wonderment. And they said, "Rick, is that you?" Asked my former intern mentors, the Reverends Carolyn and Tom Owentoll. I was so embarrassed. My spiritual cover had been blown. Instead of being the calm, kind, agreeable, sincere young fellow they had ushered into ministry, I revealed myself to be the ill-tempered, foul-mouthed lout you know me to be. So I had let my anger show. One side of myself that I wanted others to see. Indeed, I have often not wanted to recognize my own anger, but you can rest assured it's in there, because we're all endowed with an anger response. We can all get angry, and we all have gotten angry. The capacity for anger is hardwired into us. And yet it seems to be at odds with the religious and social expectations for us to be loving and kind and compassionate and understanding. And then, too, many of us have memories of the harm that has come when anger was unloosed. So it's natural to be wary of anger, to deny it. After all, you don't want to be seen as an angry person. And so it is that much anger gets turned inward and thus lies unseen, unknown, unacknowledged. And if and when it is recognized, a preacher or a spiritual teacher will say, "Let it go, let it go." And it makes good sense sometimes. But other times, letting go, that feels like a psychological sleight of hand when you're not really letting go, you're denying it, you're stuffing it, you're letting it fester somewhere deep inside, out of sight, where it can wreak havoc on your mental health. When this becomes intolerable, sometimes people, then they just let it out, they lash out in anger, sometimes in ways that are harmful to themselves and to other people. So, what can you do with your anger? What can you do? Many wise sources suggest you can pay attention. Just pay attention. To be better aware, to understand what your anger is all about. And you might discover, looking a little closer, you might discover some things you haven't seen before. Psychologist Ryan Martinez notes that anger emerges from three interacting factors. Anger emerges from three interacting factors. It's one, there's a provocation, and then there is two, your interpretation of the provocation, and three, there is the mood you are in at the time. So there's a provocation, your interpretation of the provocation, and the mood you are in at the time. That rings true for me. And from such awareness, you can come to realize that while external factors may provoke you, how you frame this internally will make all the difference. The great Buddhist scholar monk Shantideva sheds considerable light on such matters in his writing, his book, The Way of the Bodhisattva. A bodhisattva is roughly the Buddhist equivalent of a saint when you hear that term, bodhisattva. And Shantideva's book, The Way of the Bodhisattva, is one of the great spiritual classics. And he writes in this book, Shantideva does, it is to be expected for the immature to harm others. Getting angry with them is like resenting fire for burning, which is to say that no one can make you mad, even though it may feel like that's what's happening. But you can learn to pause when anger comes and get a clearer view and frame things more skillfully. Shantideva is masterful at helping you do this using memorable metaphors and images. And that's why I recommend his work, because those metaphors and images stick with you at important times and help you reframe things. And it's liberating to discover that what once bent you out of shape, got you so mad, no longer holds the power to do that, because you've learned to be more detached and centered, and how to let go of your ego and be less defensive. You can learn to frame provocations in ways that lead you to deeper understanding instead of deeper anger and resentment. That's true. Shantideva was a spiritual radical. He always wanted to go all the way with something. If he saw something good, he went all the way with it. And he looked upon provocations as blessings in disguise that enable you to find deeper liberation by practicing not getting sucked up in mad emotional dramas that cause damage. And he writes, Shantideva writes, "So like a treasure found at home, enriching me without fatigue, all enemies are helpers in my bodhisattva work, and therefore they should be a joy to me." Simply put, the sage is saying that great challenges like understanding and even feeling compassion for those who give you grief, these are great opportunities for us to grow. These are great opportunities for us to grow, to choose to grow or not. Now, I won't go into hellish detail, but I must tell you that Shantideva takes you on a tour of hell as a cautionary measure. His gruesome depictions of the realms of torment in hell make Dante's tour of hell look tame by comparison. Lots of pain and suffering going on down there. There's a big difference. Buddhist teaching does not include a belief in eternal hell, and there is eventual liberation even for the worst of sinners. But Shantideva certainly depicts hells where people experience the consequence of their bad karma. Hell is not something we talk about a lot in a Unitarian Universalist congregation. It's not a very fashionable topic of conversation in general. The modern mind naturally wonders, why would the saintly Shantideva feel this need to dwell on hell? It's a great book, but then you read these sections and it kind of strikes the mind as medieval, just over the top. And yet, the point that he's making is that our choices and our actions in our lives, they do have lasting consequences for good or for ill. One choice you can make when you're angry is to hang on to it. And thus, a flash of anger can morph into a smoldering state of hostility. It's often an unconscious choice, but one that has dire consequences. And it's a choice that is often made over and over and over again, such that what began as a flash of anger is now the full-grown cancer of hostility, a hatred that shrinks the heart and clouds the mind. Anger that evolves into hostility, hatred, it has hellish consequences for everyone, including the one who hates. But here's where things get confusing and slippery for me, because anger can be a tool that has its role in life. It can awaken people to a wrong, a transgression, an injustice. Anger can be like a bucket of cold water in somebody's face. It wakes them up. It gets their attention. You see this kind of anger often expressed by the Hebrew prophets in the Bible. They're always throwing buckets of cold water, those Hebrew prophets. This kind of anger, it serves a particular limited purpose to awaken people to awareness of their indifference, their transgressions against the poor and the needy. It's the kind of anger you see described in the Psalms, where you see mention of God, whose anger is but for a moment and whose favor is for a lifetime. I like that image. The anger is just for a moment, but the love is always lasting. Anger is natural. It has its purposes. When used for immediate impact, not permanent injury, that is, if the bucket of cold water doesn't freeze into hatred and hostility, which calls to mind Dante's image of Satan. Satan, you always think of hell as a hot place, right? But Dante's image of Satan in the lowest realm of hell, he's frozen. He's a giant demon. He's frozen up to his mid-breast in ice at the center of hell. Being frozen means that nothing new or creative can happen. When anger becomes your master, you're just stuck. You're frozen. When anger becomes your master, you're just stuck. You're frozen. So many get trapped in the frozen states of perpetual hate. And this is not our way. This is not our way. The only thing that will help is the warmth generated by love and compassion. And the wisdom traditions remind us to always, always, always aim to return to love. A spark of anger can sometimes play a role in making that happen. It can, but it's it's a supporting role. When anger starts playing the starring role in your heart and mind, then it freezes into a solid state of hatred and hostility and enmity. And there's so much of it in our polarized nation. So many people hate people on the other side. And the other side hates right back. And it's spiritually toxic. The poet Matthew Arnold lamented, "And we are here as on a darkling plains, swept with confused alarms of struggle and flight, where ignorant armies clash by night." And we are here as on a darkling plain, swept with confused alarms of struggle and flight, where ignorant armies clash by night. It's so easy to get swept up into such huge cultural clashes and fall prey to hostility. The great soul Thomas Merton noted that merely to resist evil by hating those who hate us and seeking to destroy them is actually no resistance at all. It is active and purposeful collaboration in evil that brings us into direct and intimate contact with the same source of evil and hatred which inspires the acts of our enemies. And Merton continues, we have to have a deep, patient compassion for the fears of others, an irrational mania of those who hate or condemn us. We must have a deep, patient compassion for the fears of others, an irrational mania of those who hate or condemn us. So finally, I come back to myself, and I witness the anger that arises within me. Uncharacteristically, in the past couple of years, I have felt the need to splash pails of cold water on the leadership of our larger religious and ministerial association. I've been angry. not because of any personal grievance, but because of our leadership's abuses of power and slowly dismantling our democratic structures and replacing them with authoritarian ones. It makes me angry. It makes me angry. And I have expressed this in the most public writing of all my years in the ministry. This anger, I think, plays a role. It's necessary. But it poses a very great danger to me and to everyone who holds this type of anger. For anger all too easily evolves into anger's frozen cousin, hostility, enduring enmity. And I'm afraid it has some for me, and I need to work on that. I must remember to pay attention to my anger, explore alternate ways of framing matters, and consider whether my anger is serving love or hate. Sometimes it does one or the other, but never both at the same time. I must always remember the words of our affirmation that we say at the beginning of all our services. Love is our doctrine, compassion is our way. It is my faith that even in the coldest realm of the hell of hatred, even there is a small spark of light, even there, and it can be a beginning. There is always a way. There is always a way. Do not underestimate our capacity to find one. Maybe so. I'd like to invite you now to think of your own life. Think of our lives together, how we live and love, and how we hate and hurt. Let us be aware of the choices we have. Let us not abdicate our spiritual agency. Let us remember we can find our way. We will find our way. For we are being guided by the love and the compassion that lies at the very center of our being. Amen.
No one has yet realized the wealth of sympathy, the kindness and generosity hidden in the soul of a child. The effort of every true education should be to unlock that treasure. Emma Goldman. This is something that the people at the Latinos Unidos Siempre understand as they support developing Latino youth leadership and take a stand against racial profiling and criminalization, including immigration raids. Please donate to this Share the Plate recipient for the month of March, in addition to our regular support of the Marion Polk Food Share. Please send your check to UCS or visit the website to donate. Thank you for maintaining the community of UCS and for helping the wider community of Salem.
Stringo
We take the light from our chalice, lighting the social justice candle as a symbolic reminder of the light and justice we carry out into the world. We extinguish the chalice, but not the light within us and in others. May you nurture your inner light so that it may shine brightly for yourself, and together with others, may it pierce the darkness.
You see that slide that says after the service, Zoom fellowship gathering, 12 p.m.? Please do join for that. It's an opportunity even during this time of social isolation for us to have an opportunity to be together. And also for those of you who are experiencing turmoil and challenge in your life, don't forget about the opportunity to join me and the members of the Lifelines Lay Ministry for the Compassionate Connection after the service as well. I have a couple of other announcements here. Do you see the one about for your pledge, our estimate of giving forms? First of all, I just want to say thanks to so many of you who have already sent in your generous contributions or estimate of giving forms. If you see that QR code on your screen right now, that'll, if you simply put your phone camera up to that, it'll take you to the a place where you can fill out your estimate of giving form to support the life and ministry of this congregation. If you haven't had a chance to do that yet, please do take that opportunity. We're hoping to have this done by March the 15th. That's coming up pretty quickly, isn't it? So please do that. And once again, thank you for your incredible generosity in supporting this congregation. You can see other news of the community on our website, and you can also see a couple of announcements up there right now. And I draw your attention to those. I think that's good enough for the announcements.
Our closing hymn today is We Laugh, We Cry. It's number 354 in the Gray Hymnal. We're going to sing verses 1, 2, and 3.
We laugh, we cry, we live, we die, we dance, we sing our song. We need to feel there's something here to which we can belong. We need to feel the freedom just to hearts to give, we have our thoughts to receive, and we believe that sharing is an answer. A child is born among us, and we feel a special glow. We see time's endless journey as we watch the baby grow. We thrill to hear imagination freely running wild. We dedicate our mind and hearts to the spirit of this child, and we believe in life and in the strength of love, and we have found a time to be together, and with the grace of age we share the wonder of youth, and we believe that growing is an answer. Our lives are full of wonder, and our time is very brief. The death of one among us fills us all with pain and grief. But as we live, so shall we die, and when our lives are done, the memories we share with friends, they will linger on, and we believe in life and in the strength of love, and we have found a place to be together. We have the right to grow, we have the gift to believe that peace within our living is an answer.
Please join hands, knowing that we are together in your hearts as we say our closing words. May faith in the Spirit of life, hope for the community of earth, and love for the sacred in one another be ours now and in all the days to come.